Mr. Kobakov, can you first let us know what is EBRD's role in Kosovo?
Okay, I would like first to thank you about this possibility to participate in this interview and to present EBRD to your audience.
Actually, you're my first international guest in the show, so it is our pleasure having you as part of the show.
Thank you, that's quite an honor for me. The EBRD has been in the country for many years, since 1999, although on a very low profile at the beginning. We finance private operations here, initially indirectly through funds that were organized to invest here, and the EBRD was the main investor. These funds were investing in small companies here, supporting projects, 1-2 projects per year. Subsequently, after 2008, we opened an office here. We started investing also directly, but at that time Kosovo was not yet a member of EBRD. And we use this logistics here to invest a fund's money from funds that we're considering the whole region of the Western Balkans. So Kosovo was part of the whole Western Balkans investment facility of EBRD. And we invested again in the private sector. We didn't invest in any public infrastructure projects.
You consider the private sector as the backbone of the economy, and as you mentioned, you have a huge project for development of enterprises, as providing financial support to the small and medium enterprises. Is that correct?
This is correct. The private sector is indeed key for the sustainable development of any economy, not only of Kosovo's economy. This is really it should be the private sector driving the economy and the public sector making the conditions for the private sector to do so. We are very much focused on the private sector. This is what EBRD is in fact known for. We developed our country strategy for Kosovo really around the possibility to support the private sector. This has been defined as the first priority from the 3 in our country strategy for the next 4 years.
Which companies or what sector is your priority, on your priority list of supporting?
We don't have a specific priority for a sector, so we don't focus on first sector to develop or second sector to develop, very much on the whole of the private sector in Kosovo. However, so far our investments were mainly targeting the agro-food processing companies. Mostly demand driven. This is because these companies grew the fastest and developed a project idea that could work in the present environment and came with financing requests to us. So very much demand oriented. I would mention names like Devoli, for example, Devoli Group, for whom we finance the present Tetra Pak facility near to the town of Istok in Radush. We financed also the Hadjia winery, for example, in Rahovec. We financed also, we entered with an equity participation in the Pistova company that produces the Vipa chips. So these are some of the examples that came up, but we're also financing in the manufacturing companies if we have such demand.
We haven't had a functioning government in the last few months. Did this impact somehow the implementation of this project?
No, in fact, this is the formation of the government. If you have really undecisive electoral result, is this lengthy formation is not quite unusual. It happens. It happens in many countries. The private sector still works. Obviously, it's for the investors to decide if they want to postpone it for any specific reasons. But if your investment is not somehow related to government orders or administrative decisions, that you can obviously continue with the assumption that somehow the government will come along. And so we haven't stopped in analyzing and proposing financing for the Kosovo private companies. In fact, we are right now working on a number of initiatives.
Going back to the procedures and let's say the relation between the private sector and the public sector, we have improved our numbers in the World Bank's business doing report. What is your opinion on the business climate in Kosovo?
The improvement in the World Bank doing business report is indeed commendable. But the improvement is from a very, very low base to a slightly higher base, not really to the very high ranking. The business environment, I think, and most experts, I think, also would concur, is still very, very challenging in Kosovo. It is very difficult to do business here.
Why do you say so?
Well, what are the considerations if you're a private company that decides on an investment? In the first place, do you have the necessary infrastructure? Is the administration efficient? Do you have? Is there a lot of corruption? Energy supply, obviously, if your investment requires extensive use of energy. All these things are right now not very well developed.
So basically, in a way, the let's say sphere of doing business in Kosovo, it's not an easy one. Do you have information? What's the comparison between Kosovo and the countries in the region? Let's say Montenegro or Macedonia.
I don't have really the regional perspective here. I can only say that from my observation, there were a number of foreign companies that did indeed invest in Macedonia, for example. So apparently the business environment there, comparative to Kosovo, is slightly better for them to invest. I wouldn't say it's a perfect one, but it's slightly better than the Kosovo one. I mean, Kosovo really has a long list of issues that need to be addressed.
Talking about the list of things that we have to address in the future, we are waiting for the new government to be created. What do you think that should be the top 3 priorities for the next government to consider, of course, in the economic area of the country?
I will mention these 3 topics that need to be really the focus, not in the list of their priority, just as a list. Obviously, the power supply is a critical issue, is a critical bottleneck. This is something that needs to be resolved as soon as possible. The second such priority I would name is remaining infrastructure, environmental infrastructure, among other things. Water supply, wastewater treatment, air quality, waste disposals, and so forth. This is an area that is not very often mentioned as a priority, but the potential to damage the Kosovo economy in the future is significant. Firstly, it reduces the chance to develop the agriculture here as a sector. Secondly, it will slow down significantly the EU approximation process if it's not addressed immediately with substantial investments. One third area, I would repeat something that many people have said before, is addressing the business environment, implementation of the rule of law, fair competition, and stopping of corruption and nepotism.
It's a great challenge. It will take years until we will get there. But yet again, let's just hope that at least in the new government we'll have a different structure that may be more effective, let's say that way. We had in the last government, we had the Ministry of Trade and Industry, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Economic Development, all in a way dealing with the business sector, with the public-private partnership. So the responsibilities in a way were spread in different areas. Do you consider such a structure would be appropriate for the next government, or do you have any other recommendation?
I'm not an expert in administration. However, I think that to separate the Ministry of Economic Development and the Ministry of Trade and Industry is not really the biggest issue, and it's not the issue that has dragged the economy, in fact. The Ministry of Economic Development is dealing with big problems that require a lot of resources and focus. So probably separating the trading industry that is focused on other topics like trade policy and industrial policy is not completely unwise. The main issue is that the activities of these ministries have been, in my view, not hugely prioritized at the top level. And to exemplify this, I would mention the investment in the transport infrastructure, namely in the motorway Kosovo-Albania, which is indeed needed. There is little doubt about that. And the second one that is developing right now to Skopje, that these investments were undertaken really very, very fast. And very efficient, very fast, compared to, for example, the energy sector, where the power generation is dragging already.
Why do you think
for many years
that is happening? Sorry for interrupting you, but why do you think that is happening? What could be the indicators to make these projects go faster?
There should be a prioritization of this. So you set up priorities to your ministers, timeline. Plan B, Plan C. So they go, if something stops you to develop the planning, after I would say 1-2 years, go with Plan B and so forth. But there should be a way to deal with it, not really dragging and waiting. And if something doesn't develop, then start thinking about Plan B. So it's a different mindset. I mean, if it's possible to do it really for one particular sector, I think it's possible to do it also in others.
Where can we see ourselves in 2018?
Bring forward the economy and address it. I think it will be a very challenging task to do.
Can we get more from EBRD if we wanted to?
Yes. I think there is a possibility to do more here. Use it properly. I would say yes. It is used. We're using the funds well. We're investing, I think, in good companies here. I think we also invest in good infrastructure projects here, the projects that are welcomed by many stakeholders here, in fact. But we could do more. We could do a lot more. It's a lot to be done here, indeed. And I hope that the pace of the investments will increase, so we could, frankly, start really on a bigger scale.
Okay, so they're waiting for the priorities.
I think they're waiting to define they're not defining the priorities right now.
They're waiting.
They're just waiting to see how it develops.
By being a woman in business, I always raise this question with all internationals and all institutions in general. Do you have anything in particular for women in business?
Very good question, very timely question. We were developing an initiative for that. And we are close to finalize it, and I'm quite happy to say that we are right now discussing this with one bank in Kosovo, because it will go via a local bank, and we will be hopefully able to bring you good news on this front very, very soon. It's a regional framework again for the women in business. It is donor supported, so we blend donor money with our commercial finance. The donor money will be used towards engaging consultants that will help preparing the business plans, that will help improving marketing, financial management, and so forth for the businesses run and owned by women.
Mr. Kobakov, I understand you speak a little Albanian. Is that correct?
Shumë pak.
So, faleminderit që ishe pjesë e emisionit tonë, ishte kënaqësi me të dëgju për projektet e EBRD-s dhe me ju pas juve si mysafirin tonë të parë. Faleminderit edhe një herë.
Faleminderit edhe juve, është kënaqësi pjesë ime. Faleminderit edhe ditën e mirë, jam në mirë.
Mirupafshim.
Mirupafshim.